Hey, welcome back to the show. I got a great guest joining us is Kerri Parker. She is the creator behind Highway 331 and the lake that built a town. Kerri, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for asking me to join you.
Yeah, I'm super excited you're here. You've been doing storytelling and podcast creation for quite some time. Tell our listeners in the area tell us a little bit about your background and where you grew up.
Okay, well, I grew up in a lot of different places. I went to 17 different schools growing up, kind of like a nomad. But that brought me to the South Walton area when I was in my early 20s. And I started living in Walton County that long ago. And then about 2019, after several years of corporate marketing for Seaside and Alice Beach or Sandestin and those kinds of communities, I moved to the north side of the county in DeFuniak Springs and found my home. I really like this community a lot. And then I decided to try to represent it online. And anything north of the bay is really highlighted on Highway 331. And we also connect the whole county by talking about the south side as well. It's just a way to bring a spotlight to an area that really didn't have a digital media resource.
It's great because everything really focuses on the 30A side of it, the seaside areas and that. But DeFuniak Springs is a great area, and Freeport and the whole northern side is a different lifestyle.
It really is. A lot of the people who serve the south side actually live on the north side, so you see a lot more local community up here.
And so, did you get the idea for the 331 highway as that's the main corridor of coming in and out of the north and south part of Walton County?
Yeah, it's really painfully obvious that there needed to be some kind of a bridging the gap kind of concept between the north side and the south side. And I just woke up one day thinking somebody ought to do that. And then I realized that I should do that. I
Right.
decided that I started with the creating the concept of the website first. It's sort of like the nucleus of it all. And so that takes a lot of work to develop a website that has a lot of stickiness to it. So I did it all at once, though. I developed the website and the brand, of course, and the podcast, the social channels, and the newsletter so that we could launch it in September of 23. And we did. And then since then, we've written so many stories. And I believe we've got about 30 podcasts in the hopper now at this, or episodes, I should say. And I just released one this morning, actually. So,
No, that's great. You do. We cross paths in similarities a little bit, where we focus on this area and specifically the Panhandle, but you focus really on the corridor in DeFuniak. So, what drew you and like pulled you to the northern side of DeFuniak, being down here?
yeah, very good question. My husband, we were in our late 40s when he was said to me, I really want to be able to get on a tractor and take care of the land and enjoy that part of my life while I can. And so before we hit that number, we were able to purchase, we have 32 acres and we're in the city limits of DeFuniak. So we have like a little heaven over here that he's made it look, and he promised me that he'd make it look like a state park. And he did that very thing.
Nice. Yeah, that's great in the area. So he's always wanted to be a farmer or just cultivate the land.
Say cultivate the land because it really looks like a state park. We do grow a few things. Luckily, this place was so beautifully maintained, and the original owner had planted a lot of fruiting trees, and we have a pecan orchard, and so he made this place just absolutely beautiful from that get go. And then when we got it, we got to revive a lot of things and remodel the home. And so anyway, we don't actually grow like as a farmer, but we enjoy what is here. And then I'm actually growing some flowers right now because I love to grow flowers. So.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Is that part of being in there and redoing your property and the land? What drew you into the community building and storytelling?
Well, back in the day, when I first started my career in marketing, I really started at Seaside, and then Sandestin was looking for somebody to help sell marketing for real estate. I didn't sell real estate, but marketing for real estate. And I thought, I don't know about that kind of a job. How could that be fun? I really thought that. But what happened was that I was given a very nice budget. I did a magazine called Sandestin Living, still in publication today. But I started it because of when you're trying to sell something, it shouldn't be about the 4 bedrooms and the 2 baths and such. It really needs to be about the lifestyle when you're talking about a community like Sandestin, for example. So this all started way back in early 2000. So I started really becoming a storyteller back in the day under the corporate umbrella of Sandestin Real Estate. Publication really helped me think about how people really emotionally connect with stories more than they do with what materials your bathroom is made of, you know? So
Right.
I really started working on storytelling at a young age.
Storytelling is it's the connection, it's the emotion, it's the feel. You're doing a good job. I've listened to a bunch of your episodes of connecting that culture between the coastal living and the inland living on 331. So that's really good. And the guests that you put on there for the area have been great.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to do it.
And so when you were back to creating the vision of the brand for the 331 highway, have you always envisioned doing the podcast portion of it to have guests on there?
It was sort of I remember a lot of times I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about things, and that's what that came from. I hadn't yet launched Highway 31, but I knew I needed to do a podcast to give it a brand voice. I knew that it would just be another website, it'd just be another social channel. It would really just be another newsletter if you didn't have a brand voice. And I knew it had to be me, you know, and I uh I was really uncomfortable with it. And there's a certain amount of vulnerability that you put into everything that you create, from a story that you're writing and handing off to be online or to put on a newsletter, but especially vulnerable to be on a podcast and be the host, as you know.
Yes, as I'm learning, they're getting better as you go, but the first few you're out there and it's hard, it's challenging.
Yeah, that's why when I did my very first episode, I chose a friend of mine to be the guest because I deeply knew his passion for storytelling as a musician, and I knew it very well, so I knew that we would have a good conversation. So it kind of put me in the right spot to start off with Tim Jackson.
I did the same thing with Kurt Tobias. I knew him well for multiple years, and he's very good at communicating and branding. And so that's why you started off, give yourself a little bit of a easy one, but it gets harder over time. And you've been doing it for multiple years. What keeps driving you to do the podcast and Highway 331?
Wow. Well, it is genuinely a passion. I absolutely love to share stories. I like to help uplift people, and everything that we work on is positive, and I think people feel safe when they come on the podcast or when I'm writing a story about them or even working on a reel for social media. They know that I'm only going to be trying to uplift a community and not find ways to poke at people.
Right. And that's great. Like the uplifting part is inspiring. And we have a cross path of all of our guests here in this community. It's a mesh of different cultures, but everybody is always willing to help and always uplifting of each other, which is really great for this little bubble that we live in.
Definitely as a bubble.
So going from branding, marketing to there, now you're doing filmmaking and you've just launched recently. And I just got done watching the great film of the lake that built a town. What inspired you to do that?
Whew. Well, I know what inspired me to think I could do it was a wonderful group of women, Nancy Hasty and Jessica Anderson. Jessica Anderson is the director of a film called The Flight of Jackie Cochran. And when I was involved with helping them promote it as a marketer in a kind of a PR way, I started recognizing how it really translated well to be a storyteller, to go into videography, to be able to use music and sound. I was already doing reels, but they're about 30 seconds long, maybe a minute at the most. And I thought to myself, well, if I could do a short documentary, what would I make it about? And so it was very clear to me that it had to be about Lake DeFuniak. A lot of folks do not know the history of DeFuniak and how that lake was the reason why the railroad came through. It's the reason why the Chautauqua was here. I knew these people who were stewards of that history just because I lived here, and I knew that they would accept a interview. So I went for it. But I will tell you also the Sowell Foundation had this opportunity. They allow every quarter they give $2,500 to as a grant to someone who they select through a process to do a film. And I happened to apply and they interviewed me and it just turned out that I won. But what was crazy was when I won, really the pedal to the metal. You only have
Right.
90 days to create the film. Thankfully, I'm always taking videos and such that I had some, footage on my phone already, and I had some interview with a Diane Pickett. I had already once interviewed her, so I was able to work within the parameters, and in the end, I was able to get a film done within less than 90 days and show it. I showed it in January for the first time.
Yeah, and that's amazing.
As you know, I just now added it to YouTube because I was waiting. I was trying to work some thoughts out in my head first. And thankfully, I didn't have to edit the film because if I would have, I probably would have made some changes and then I would have ruined the whole dang thing.
Yeah. So, have you had any filmmaking experience before you had to jump into that 90 days?
No,
No.
just reels, which if anybody doesn't know what a reel is, it's a social media reel. Usually you hold your phone vertically so that you can use the full real estate of the phone to entrance somebody for at least 30 seconds.
Right.
So this film is 15 minutes, and I believe it might have taken me 100 hours to make. I have no idea. I didn't clock them because I just did not want to know how long it took me.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us about how you went from winning the grant and then now you have a 90-day deadline with no filmmaking experience to go and create, which is really good. People got to go out. I'm going to post a link to all the social medias for here. It is a great little 15-minute film on DeFuniak. So how did you go from I've won a grant and now I've got 90 days to learn all of this and produce it?
Man, lots of sleepless nights. I basically kind of followed a process. I have a mirror next to my office right here, and I use dry eraser markers, and
Hmm.
I create ideas on it, and I start working through it, and then I start putting text to it. I knew I needed to start with the science of the film of the lake. I knew the science was really important, and because of there's so many stories about the lake. It could have been a crater. It could have been it was just ridiculous. A lot of the stuff that was being said about the lake. So I knew I needed a scientist involved. I knew I needed certain people that were interested in the preservation of the history of DeFuniak. So I knew that it was going to be a certain amount of segments. I knew each segment needed to be a certain amount of time. So I started breaking it down that way. So it became a little less difficult to jump into. But yeah, writing it, I must have rewritten the whole piece over and over again just to make sure that it was the right thing. And then, of course, the voiceover work has a lot to do with what we use for podcasting. So, Riverside, and I have done that. But I did have a very interesting situation. I also learned how to drive or fly a drone during this time.
Nice. Yeah.
Really felt like second nature. I absolutely love flying a drone. So I did accidentally land it in the lake one time.
Did it survive the fall in the lake?
Well, I really had to get to the next step. I had to go get my hair done. I had an appointment and I didn't want to mess that up because I don't want to mess up the lady who does my hair's work day. So I left and 8 hours later, I feel like it was 8 hours later. It may not have been that long. But we returned and I called a friend of ours that I knew was a diver. And I said, I can see on the, module where this drone is in the Lake DeFuniak. And he said, guess what? My brother has got all his dive gear and he's like 1 minute from there. I couldn't even believe it. So some our friends that own the last stop here in DeFuniak Springs, they came in their dive gear and Jake went out and through a little bit of guidance, it took a little bit of time, but he got up and pulled my drone out of the water, which really mattered a lot because I had hours of footage on inside the drone I had not downloaded that I really needed. It was a Friday. I put it in rice. I put the SD card in rice, and it was like the resurrection. I waited till Sunday.
Yeah.
3 days later, it's perfect timing that we're doing this right around Easter. And believe it or not only did all of the content on the SD card work, it is inside the film, my drone still works,
Oh, that
which
is impressive.
I was not expecting that to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, quite the story.
I was expecting the car to be okay, the film, but the drone didn't survive.
And it did. It's amazing. It kind of tells a lot about that lake. That lake has fresh water in it, so.
Yep. Had to learn. You learned how to fly a drone, and the video of the movie is really good, high quality. So, did you have to get producers or videographers to help you film it, or did you do it all yourself?
Another great question. I'm proud of the fact that I did it all myself. There was footage I pulled from a wonderful friend who came and did some drone work when we were paddling one day. I needed that paddle footage, but I did not know why I needed it until I needed it, if you know what I mean. So her name's Andrea, and we made sure to give her credit at the end of the film. And then Jack Gardner, he gave me a photo, just a still life shot of the over the lake where you see the exact circle. I will tell you why I could not get as high as you need to go legally to get that particular angle, and he had it already. So he's also credited in the film for that.
Okay, no, that's good. Yeah, because there's certain limits that you can fly. My son does drone flying, so he had to get special licenses for school to fly his drone higher in certain areas. So,
And permissions, of course. Yeah.
yep, that's all a thing. One of the great things I liked about the film is you talk about the history of it. You incorporate the development of the town that was around it and how the town grew because of the lake. Also, the history that you've laid out is great to preserve it for our next generation. Was that the part of your goal when you created the film?
Absolutely. A lot of the people in that film are in their 80s, and we need to preserve history. And it is something that is near and dear to me, and I'm really hoping to do more of it. I'm hoping to do another film in the future highlighting even more of the history. There's a segment in the film that it talks about how the lake closed in the 60s, and I'd love to do a whole segment just on that. And that's also obviously history, so it'd be an interesting
Yeah.
piece.
And that's good. And I think what you're doing with the film and stating how it closed is also protecting it from future because as everyone knows, we're continuing to, everyone loves this area, build, develop, overdevelop in the area. And it's facing just outpacing the preservation of land that we have. So this is building good knowledge and history for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really glad you got to see the whole film.
Yeah, I'm glad you shared it with me beforehand. So I guess based on the film, you had more ideas to create more films in the future.
Yes, yes. I mean, there are a few organizations in DeFuniak. There's Forward DeFuniak, which Dr. Melinda Henderson spoke to that in the film. They're doing all kinds of things to help bring the preservation to the forefront, and I think that would be an interesting architectural type preservation type story. I think a civil rights story in the '60s. I think a more scientific exploration of the lake. All of these could be short films, maybe somewhere between 7 and 15 minutes, and the reason I think they're not only important because of they preserve history, but because they give a voice to something that really matters in this community, and it also I get a little bit deep with this one, but I genuinely feel like there's a lot of people in the community on the north side of Walton County that have a poverty mindset. And I feel like we need to give people reasons to be proud of where they're from. And I feel like these films can do that.
I agree. It definitely opened my eyes out to more of DeFuniak Springs and changes my vision of it. So hopefully it does for a lot of people that watch this film as well.
Thank you. I hope so.
What's one thing that you worked through personally that was tough and challenging while you were creating the film?
Gosh. I mean, it's you have to be when you're doing a podcast episode, it's really easy to be behind this monitor. But I did all of these interviews in person and just the technological aspects, the sound is really important. And having a continuity of sound, that was a technical thing I had to challenge that I had to really overcome. I've always been a digital person. I've always loved computers and photography and lighting. So it was really more the sound that was more of a challenge for me because I had never really focused on that before other than in our podcast. So, I'm sure you understand why that's not easy.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, but also just like, what is that syndrome that you imposter syndrome? I'm not a
Hmm.
filmmaker.
Right.
I knew I wasn't a filmmaker. I still don't really think that is who I am. I just know that I tell stories and now I have a lot more tools to use. And now I know how to use editing software in a way that I never knew how. And if I don't use it, I'm going to lose it. So I better get back on it, you know?
Yeah. Do you have that feeling continue today, like I do, the imposter syndrome as you're doing these podcasts and sitting down with people still today?
I do. I do. It gets easier. I think now that I'm 2.5 years into it, uh, I feel so grateful that I overcame that fear. I call it delusional confidence.
It's a
I
good way.
first rec I first recognized it my 20 I don't know, I think she was 22 or 23 years old when I flew to Arizona to see my daughter do a TED Talk, and she was up on the stage, and I thought to myself, that it takes delusional confidence to get up there. You have to have a certain amount of confidence that is almost delusional, and I really I wrote a whole story about it, and, the point is that that's when I recognized that I had lost that. Right before I turned 50, I didn't realize that I had lost all my confidence, just never beginning to do the creative work that I really wanted to do, and so I just recognized that if you have that kind of confidence, you can do it. You may have to pick yourself up every morning or remind yourself of that confidence, but I think that's really the key there is to kind of every day have a renewal of understanding that what you're doing is special and you're helping a community. And as long as I'm staying on path that I know that I'm doing something purposeful to help our community, I should be able to do this for as long as I can.
Yeah, that's great. So how did you get your confidence back when you lose it? Because everyone has that challenge. You get bogged down every day, but how did you build that confidence back?
Well, it wasn't easy. That's true. And I will say that I quit a high paying job out of nowhere and I had no idea what I was going to do next, but I've always had marketing to back, to fall back on because I've always been a marketer. So as soon as I quit that big job, I took a contract gig to do social media for a major restaurant industry. I don't know how you say that. You don't say major restaurant. It's a company that had several restaurants and they needed somebody who understood how to do social media. So I really felt like I was, oh gosh, I really am changing directions. Here I was, corner kind of office Carrie and corporate Carrie, and now I'm back into marketing and in a level that I'm not even sure I really belong because I'm almost 50 at this point. And but I think that confidence really came back when I recognized that and I still, like I said, I kind of struggle with it every day, but I think a lot of it has to do with, it's a gift and you got to work on your gifts and you got to believe that your gifts are making a difference. And there are plenty of people who probably don't think that of me. There's probably 80% that do and 20% that don't, but I cannot allow them to bother me?
Right. That's great. Yeah, you can't focus on the negativity of it, but build what all there. And I think just from what we're doing here, the podcast, and the same that you're doing, you build that confidence by going out and stretching yourself. Did you see that to be true? You stepped out of your comfort zone from corporate world and doing all these things, and it continues to stack your confidence level.
You're 100% right. Yeah, because I'm sure I could tell you that I know exactly the year. In 2022, I definitely did not feel any confidence yet, but it was about now I remember that it was 23 when my daughter was 23 years old and we went to go to that TED Talk. She was about to turn 23. And I remember that that was the year that I took it all back and said, it's almost like you fan that flame inside of you and you just
Hmm.
fan it and you fan it and you fan it. And and then it was that there's a year that was the summer that I thought of Highway 231 and then that September launched it. So it was in 23.
Great. So your daughter helped you get that confidence to build that from seeing her up there on the stage for you to come back and be inspired to do more?
I
Yeah.
I should tell you that when I was a young person, I actually was an actress and I did toured as Beauty and Beauty and the Beast all over Texas. And I had so much confidence. And so seeing my daughter on that stage and recognizing that I used to be like that. Why am I not like that anymore? Is it the extra weight I was carrying? Probably not. It was really the emotions.
We're able to see that, and now you're doing amazing work, which is great, and you're loving it. Like it shows in the work you're doing. It shows in the episodes that you guys are releasing. It's good stuff. How was the feeling? You produced a film, and then you had to go and show it for the first time at the Sowell House for the foundation. How was that? The emotional experience of that day.
I don't know if you've seen any of the pictures or any of that, but I was so blown away, excited, happy. First of all, both my daughters were there. I have extended daughter and sons from my husband. We blended the family, but both my daughters were there in person. The whole place was packed full of people. I just didn't expect any of that. And it was probably, I know this is going to sound cliche, it was probably the best night of my life. It really was because I just felt very loved and I had seen it so many times because I wanna put it together, so I wasn't really watching the film, I was looking at the audience and watching people's reactions, and it was very emotional, like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, it was really cool, and some people, told me they were tearing up, and I know they were, I saw them.
Yeah.
So it was just really amazing. Thank you for asking about that night because honestly, it really was one of the best nights of my life.
Yeah, and especially since you had to overcome a whole bunch of things to get there and accomplish a lot before to get to that night, and then to see it build up, just had to be tremendous. So, congratulations on that. That's great.
Thank you so much, and a big thank you to Dave King for believing in me and kind of, making sure that I stayed on track. It was really amazing. Dave King is one of the owners of Soho House, a co-owner of Soho House, and he's a great visionary for our community and for creatives in any kind of creative work, so he's an amazing guy.
Yep, he does amazing things. I do a couple episodes at the Solo House over there to record and in their studio as well. So he is great and doing great work for the community.
Absolutely.
There are so many people in the community that are doing great things, and that's why I reached out to you to be a guest on here. How do you continue to do like I do, find the guests that inspire others to be here on our shows?
Oh, man, that's a great question too. A lot of times it has to do with, the cadence of what's going on in our community. I wish I could do one a week, really. There's so many good things going on. It's just, as you know, you maybe record for 45 minutes, but it takes you I don't know about you, but it takes me a couple hours to just edit it and then bring the awareness to the actual episode as well. So I create reels and do all the social and, all the different things. So I'm talking about an 8 hour probably process altogether. So a lot of people have no idea how long it takes us to put these episodes out. But
Right.
yeah, it's definitely the cadence of the community though that helps me. And I also try not to do more than one a month. I might end up doing two a month this month. Actually, I might actually do three. But that's just because of it's the cadence of the community. Here we are back to the beginning of spring and summer, and so many things are going on. So we really kind of have to just kind of work with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the ebbs and flows. And when I got into this, see a little bit with blinders on, you're like, yeah, it's not going to be that much work. We'll do an hour episode, we'll record it, we'll publish it. And then you're like, no, there's not knowing all of the back end work of this there's a lot more to it that you don't really realize until you start doing it.
You bet. Yeah, I love it when people ask me, "Hey, can I be on your podcast? I just want to talk about this, this, and this." I'm like, "Yes, but I do not have time for that for the next few weeks."
Right. And so you do all of that. You've learned like the social media part of it came from your background, your marketing background. But that's one piece where I come from tech. So the recording part, the editing part is pretty easy on my side. But the social media part is the challenging piece behind it. So you sort of flip that around and you have the marketing, the social media piece down, and now getting the connections of the rest of the brand.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. And it's just a dream come true, really. And I have a friend, the people who own sowall.com are some of my close friends. And Kurt Lishka is an amazing techie guy. But I remember I had lunch or dinner with them not long ago, and Teresa said, "Well, it only took you a few months to put together that website. It took Kurt, I don't know how many years." And I was like, you know what? The difference is technology has become so much easier. And I know that. I know that, and I attribute it to the whizzy widgets of the world. Things have gotten easier. It's just really, you have to have perseverance. You have to be somebody who is very disciplined to follow the process from beginning, middle, and end. And I don't know, I think that's just something that I've always had, and I try to instill into my family and my girls.
Yeah, and that's true behind that. You got to have perseverance. You're not going to succeed in day one. You're going to have setbacks, and you've taught your family, definitely your daughters, to do TED Talks to keep trying and succeed, and that's great. That's what we need more in this generation and more in this community.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And I do feel like that's what college kind of taught too, is if you committed to finish school, you had really back in my day, you had to be there every day and you had to work hard. And even I lost a parent in the midst of my undergraduate degree. And, you have to decide to yourself, am I going to keep doing this? And I think that's just something I've said I cannot not do that. I have to get out of that lower income level that I grew up in.
Right. And strive to do better. So, what do you see the next few years of uh, Highway 331 branding going?
Well, that's a good question. I think about that all the time. I don't really know. No, I obviously I have a desire. I just hope that people are proud of it and that they think to themselves that I belong to the Highway 231 fan club. You know what I mean? I hope that they say this is what I identify with. I want that brand to be something that helps maybe uplift this community, and maybe they'll start sharing it more. I have to say I'm really impressed with the way it's grown, and we have about 11 a little over 11,000 followers on just Facebook alone, and then our newsletter has about 14,000 subscribers. So we just really want that to grow, and I truly want to continue to do this until I just can't see the monitor anymore.
No, that is good, and that's fun to do as you grow, and the community is going to constantly change and grow. So there's never-ending stories to tell in this area.
You bet. That's absolutely true. The people make it special.
Yeah, and that's one thing. How can people in the area continue to support projects like the film that you're doing, the podcast that we're doing in the area? What's one way that you can recommend the younger generation, as well as everyone that's living in here, that can continue to support and engage in your work?
Well, there's a few different things. For one, I think that if you read a story, the whole idea is that sharing is good. Share the story. It usually helps another business or it helps an event to be successful. And most of the events in our area are to support a nonprofit organization. So we have well over 300 nonprofit organizations just in Walton County alone. So, these stories usually are something that supports a small town business or a small organization. So hopefully they're sharing. Also, businesses have been reaching out to become advertisers. So we have banner ads and we have sponsorships in our newsletter, sponsorships now in the podcast. And so this will help me to continue to do this as long as I can.
And it also helps preserve the history of our great little area here as well.
Absolutely.
What
Absolutely.
advice would you give some of our younger generations to get involved in doing this, so we can hear stories from them?
Oh, well, love to interview some younger folks. Just yesterday, I had the honor and pleasure to vote at the Shark Tank competition at South Walton High School. And eventually that competition becomes county-wide. All the different high schools go against each other. More of that. Like, I want to make sure that we can bring young, I don't know if inventors is the right way, but entrepreneurs is probably the right way to put that, to the podcast, share their stories. If somebody wants to learn how to write stories or to put together reels or do some of these podcast episodes, I think people like you and I should be able to reach out to them.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, and I've offered that up with some others. If anyone's interested to learn how I've set this thing up and how you set this up, we'll share our contact information, because it is daunting to do that, and that's some advice that you would give somebody to take the first steps of stepping out. What if they want to do a documentary on their own like you did? How would you encourage them to go and do that?
Just start it. Get in. Take as much footage. You're gonna need way more footage than you think you're gonna need. I did about an hour long with Dr. Melinda Henderson, and I only was able to take a short amount because that's all I could, because it's gonna be a short film, right? But now I have all this extra documentation that I can use for future work as well. And I think that's something that people need to know. And I've given one person advice about a podcast before, and she told me that she's never forgotten it. And that's just to do the 12 episodes before you decide not to do it again, because the first time's gonna be really hard. The second time, even harder, probably third, fourth. All of them are gonna be very difficult. But by the time you get to the 12th one, you realize I've done something here. I'm gonna keep doing this. And so I would make sure that somebody knows to just do 12 episodes.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
And don't look at the stats or the analytics of it all, because no one knows it exists at this point in time, and you're still figuring it out. So just keep releasing them, and you could probably be doing 30, and you're going to have errors, you're going to have mess ups, but just keep publishing them.
That's right. Absolutely. You gotta give yourself some grace, you know?
Right. Yep. And just keep trying, because you'll get better. You'll make an impact. You won't know. One episode may make an impact that changes the whole generation of the community. You just don't know which one it's going to be.
Yeah. You don't know who's gonna be listening and when.
Right. So, what are some of your favorite spots in DeFuniak Springs that most people don't think about or hear about around here?
Well, I some of my best friends just opened a restaurant in our downtown that used to be Bogey's, but when they purchased this historic building on Baldwin, they came up with a concept called Iron and Grape, and it is an Italian cuisine. But the chef there, trained under a master chef, he in his own right is a master chef. Uh, he makes all of his pastas, he makes all of his bread, he makes all of his sauces. It's a scratch kitchen. So to me, when I go out, I love going there. I love to go to restaurants like Sweet Southern Comfort, especially in for breakfast for me. But when it comes to nature, our own little heaven on earth that Dan created. I love our trails, so I'm a trail girl. Any kind of trail, any of the area, but of course, my absolute favorite is Lake DeFuniak. It's just the historic nature of it, the buildings, the architecture, the round lake. For some reason, I've always been obsessed with circles, and you probably caught that in
Yeah.
the lake of the town. It's the circles really matter. So I've always been obsessed with that little lake and probably one of the main reasons why I wrote a story about it and began doing a documentary about it. So I hope that helps. But those are some of my favorite places in Devuniak. Just walking around I used to jog, but now I just walk around and I take my time and I love trees and trails. But if anybody ever wants to know anything about Devuniak, they could call me up or
One of your favorite stories that you've uncovered from being in DeFuniak and doing everything that you're doing out there?
well, I truly believe this with all my heart. One of my favorite stories actually is about a musician named Duke Bardwell. He is in his 70s and is aging out of being able to be on stage with the people he loves. And I had the honor of interviewing him at Stinky's Bait Shack one day. I thought it was going to be like an hour, maybe at the most, but we ended up speaking for a couple hours. And I wrote a very short story explaining that engagement. And he's just such a special person and an influencer of our community and live music in our area that I felt like it was one of the great honors of my life to interview him. So I did that story. That was a while back, so I'll have to send it to you because you might have trouble finding it.
Yeah, no, that's good. I look forward to listening to that and reading it. That's great. So, as you reflect on everything that you've done with Highway 331 and your short film, what do you want people to take away from the work that you're putting out in the community? One thing that you hope people get from it.
Well, I'm going to go right back to that pride in your community. Not everybody wants to be a politician making those kinds of changes in this world, but rather just be a good person in your community and help your neighbor. And I hope that this pride that we can just blanket people with the ability to have a good heart and treat each other good. And even though you may not agree with somebody, just truly find a common ground and be a good person.
Yeah, that's a great thing to strive for around here, Evely. And you rolled sort of right into my last question that I ask every one of the years. What is one of the biggest challenges or issues that you see that could improve of the Panhandle?
Well, I do think that we need to bridge a gap between what we believe is the truth and what other people's believe is the truth, just to find a commonality so that we can work together and everybody kind of find some peace in their heart. And I think when you are full of anger and frustration, we're just dividing further, and it's just going to cause a great rift. And I'm really hoping that more and more people recognize this in themselves, and also give the people that don't see it the grace that you need to give them, so that you can just slide right past that and go to the next. Try to be a good person and bridge that gap.
Yeah, that's great advice. Kerri, thank you for being on the show today. Your stories, your podcast, and your episodes are making a great impact for the Panhandle and 331 area. So I truly appreciate you being on here. How can people find you on Instagram, your video and links? I'll post all those in this episode as well.
Great, great. Well, I'm sure you know highway331.com, and then the handles on social are the same. There's a dot on Instagram, highway dot 331 on that one, but it's just HWY in case that could be confusing. And my email is super easy. It's Kerri, Kerri at highway331.com. So anybody can reach out to me.
Thank you for being on today.
Thank you so much. This has been an honor.